Okay, thanks. I'm Chris Whong. I'm a data solutions architect for Socrata, and that's not only the coolest job title in the world, it's also the coolest job in the world. So what I get to do is help governments unlock their data. So I have a technical background, but I also have a degree in urban planning and a focus on civic technology. And I'm the guy who can come into a room and say that you don't have to be, you don't have to have the technical resources of New York City to have a robust open data program. And as a consumer of data, you don't need to be a data scientist or somebody specialized in data to actually consume civic data. So my favorite data is data that is both, or all three of these things, open, civic, and geospatial. And if I have all three of these, I can usually turn it into something very interesting. So I start with GIS. I call it my gateway drug, but that was my what got me into like kind of data munging. But I'm just going to go over a few different techniques and examples here. But what you're seeing is called a globe extrusion in a program called ArcScene, which is part of the ArcMap suite. But by adding a three-dimensional aspect using data, you can actually add a little bit more depth than you can just by color coding polygons. So that's one example. Processing is another tool that I've used extensively, and it allows you to do kind of animations using data. They don't really live on the web. They kind of live on your computer, but you can make these front to finish, from beginning to end animations using data. So to make this one, this is basically we collected 5 days worth of Twitter data using the Twitter API. And what we're essentially doing here is linking together people's tweets. So if you tweeted in one location and another location in the same day or in the same 5-day period, I can then interpolate your movement and animate it. So the idea here is just to kind of look at movement patterns and kind of see the flow of people moving around the city as they tweet. Bike share data is now accessible in DC, less accessible in New York, but we're working on that. But the DC bike share actually publishes all of their trip data, which is great. So you've got a start and finish point for all these different trips. And again, in processing here, I take this data and I can kind of animate start to finish and also do some calculations on the fly to show how many bikes are being ridden. And you can see that like at 3 in the morning, the people who commented on this called it the ride of shame. But there are there are quite a few people using the bike share at 4 a.m. And you can really see the surges that happen during the day too, during rush hour and during the lunch breaks. So this is just one more way we can kind of make the data dance and see what's inside all these ones and zeros. Another thing we can do with transit data. The MTA in New York City actually releases, in a not very awesome format, their turnstile data. So we know how many people are coming and going from each turnstile set at each station in the New York City subway. And what I've done here is actually kind of animate that. So the green dots you see, oh, you don't see them very well. You're going to have to load this one on your own later. But animating kind of a movement of a dot into and out of a station and color coding it, and you really get to see the pulse of the city over time. And you can kind of speed these things up and really get to see an overall movement pattern. So moving away from that, I wanted to get into, instead of making these animations that are just a video, moving into kind of putting these things on the web so they're a little more dynamic and a little more explorable, I move into using D3 and a few other visualization libraries. And so this is an example of D3 plus Leaflet. And if we can get it to load. And my base map's coming in here. But this is this is data from the Philly bike share. Sorry, not Philly bike share. Philly bike theft data from the city of Philadelphia. But we've added it so we can actually kind of explore this map and watch the animation as it happens and zoom in on a neighborhood. So it's great that the city's putting this out, but this is another example of taking civic data that's in its raw form from the city and turning it into something that is useful to the average citizen. Aside from that, we've got this is a visualization I made of the New York City Open Data Portal. So this is actually data about data. What you're seeing here is the breakdown of data sets that are in Socrata's Open Data Portal in New York City and all the derived views off of them. So if you don't know in Socrata, you can take a data set, save a filtered view, save a chart or a map. And what's most interesting here is that 311 is the wildly most popular data set in New York City, that more people have made filtered views on it than anything else. But it's just a kind of another way to look at what is already becoming a very large set of data. 1,100 data sets can be hard to chop up, but if you can visualize it in the right way, you can make it a little bit easier to consume. And then last but not least, this is an example of a D3 chart that I built using the data from the United Nations Development Program. So we can chop up the HDI indicators and actually explore countries over time. I can click on countries and compare them to one another, and just basically chop up their massive data set of HDI data. So going through all of these. Okay, so to do all these, you need kind of three things, in my opinion. You need the technical chops, you need the design eye, and you need some vision and storytelling. So I started out kind of somewhere up in the middle between the tech chops and the design eye, and I'm moving more towards, instead of just saying how can I make something cool out of this data, why am I making something cool out of this data? What question am I answering? So if you can combine those three and come up with a compelling visualization, you can put your data to work. So thank you for your time. That's all I've got. Thank you.